John was a quiet man who lived in a small town. He worked as a teacher in the local school, helping children learn reading, writing, and math. People liked him because he was kind and patient, always ready to help anyone in need. Even though he worked hard every day, life was not easy for him. His house was small and he barely had enough money to pay the bills. Still, he never complained. He believed that hard work and honesty were more important than money. John had 2 children, Sam and Mia. They were grown-ups now, and they lived in the city. Sam worked in an office and Mia was a nurse. Both of them loved their father, but they often laughed at his bad luck. They joked that he could not even win a small lottery or find a free parking spot. "Dad, you are always unlucky. Maybe you are cursed," Sam would tease with a smile. Mia would laugh too, saying, "Yes, Dad. Even if a penny fell from the sky, it would miss you." John just smiled and shook his head. He knew they meant no harm, but he wished they could see that life could surprise anyone at any time. One sunny morning, John received a letter. The envelope was thick and official-looking. His name was written in clear, bold letters. He felt a strange feeling in his chest. He had received letters before, but this one felt different. Carefully, he opened it and began to read. The letter was from a law firm in a distant city. It said that John had inherited a mansion from a distant relative he had never met. The mansion was old, large, and had been in the family for many generations. John could not believe what he was reading. He immediately called Sam and Mia. "You will not believe this," he said, his voice full of surprise. "I inherited a mansion. A real big old mansion." Sam laughed loudly on the phone. "Dad, that sounds like a joke. Are you serious? I hope it is not one of those haunted houses." Mia giggled too. "Yes, Dad. Don't tell me it's falling apart and full of ghosts. You will probably need a hammer just to open the door." John could hear their laughter and felt a little embarrassed, but he stayed calm. "I am serious," he said. "I don't know much about it yet. I have to visit and see what it is like." After ending the call, John felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had never imagined that something like this could happen to him. Maybe life was finally giving him a chance to change. He decided to take a trip to the city where the mansion was located. He packed a small bag with clothes, a notebook, and a camera. He wanted to see every corner of the mansion and record everything he found. The next day, John started his journey. The roads were long, and the scenery slowly changed from green fields to tall buildings. He thought about the mansion all the way. Will it be beautiful, or will it be broken and empty? "I hope I can handle whatever I find," he told himself, his heart beat faster with every mile. He remembered the stories he had heard about old mansions. Some were filled with beauty, history, and secrets, while others were just empty buildings that needed too much repair. When John finally reached the street where the mansion was located, he could see it from a distance. His eyes widened in surprise. The mansion was enormous, much bigger than he had imagined, but it looked old, very old. The walls were covered with vines and the windows were dusty. The roof had some broken tiles and the paint had peeled off in many places. It seemed like no one had lived there for years. Neighbors were walking along the street and some stared at John as he arrived. He waved politely, but they seemed curious and a little suspicious. John parked his small car and walked toward the mansion. The front gate was rusty, and the hinges creaked when he pushed it open. He paused for a moment, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. "This is my mansion now. I have to see what secrets it holds," he said quietly. He entered the main hall. The floor was covered with dust and cobwebs hung from the high ceiling. Sunlight entered through broken windows, creating patterns on the walls. The air smelled old and slightly musty. John took out his notebook and began writing notes about what he saw. He wanted to remember every detail. There were large doors, old furniture, and paintings of serious-looking people. It was like stepping into another time, a time long ago. Even though the mansion seemed abandoned, John felt something strange, almost magical. He had no idea what was waiting for him inside. For now, he only knew that his life had changed forever, and that laughter from his children would soon turn into curiosity, and maybe wonder. John took a deep breath and stepped further into the mansion. The adventure had just begun, and he felt ready to face whatever came next. John took his first careful steps deeper into the mansion. Each room seemed larger than the last. The walls were painted in faded colors and the carpet was torn in many places. Dust floated in the sunlight that streamed through broken windows, making the air look like it was alive. John felt a shiver, not of fear but of excitement. He could sense that the mansion had many stories to tell, and he wanted to discover every one of them. As he walked through the hallways, he noticed strange carvings on the wooden doors. Some looked like flowers, others like stars. John stopped to study them. Who made these? And why? He wondered. He pulled out his notebook and began drawing the patterns. He thought maybe they could be clues about the people who once lived here. Every corner of the mansion seemed full of mysteries waiting to be solved. He entered a large room with high ceilings. Sunlight shone through a broken window, illuminating a giant fireplace. The fireplace was blackened with soot, showing that long ago people had used it to stay warm. On the walls hung old paintings. They were of men and women in old-fashioned clothes, their eyes serious and stern. John stared at them, imagining their lives. Who were they? What stories did they hold? He felt a strange connection to the past, as if the mansion itself was welcoming him. John's footsteps echoed through the halls as he moved to the next room. There he found broken furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. A large wooden cabinet stood against one wall. Its doors were slightly open. Curiosity pushed him closer. He opened the cabinet carefully. Inside were stacks of old books, their pages yellowed with age. Some books had gold letters on the cover, while others were plain. John touched the pages gently, feeling the texture of history beneath his fingers. In the corner of the same room, John noticed a small desk with drawers. He tried opening them. One drawer was stuck, but the other opened easily. Inside, he found letters tied with faded ribbons. He untied one and began reading. The handwriting was beautiful and careful, unlike anything he had seen before. The letters spoke about travels to faraway lands, treasures discovered, and the excitement of new adventures. John could hardly believe it. His distant relatives had lived fascinating lives filled with journeys and secrets. John felt a sudden excitement. Maybe this mansion was more than just a building. Maybe it was a treasure in itself. He remembered the laughter of his children when he told them about inheriting the mansion. They will be surprised when they see this, he thought with a small smile. He decided to call Sam and Mia later to share what he had found. Continuing his exploration, John went upstairs. The staircase was wide but creaked under his weight. He held onto the railing carefully. Each step made a soft sound that echoed through the mansion. The upper floor had bedrooms, a study, and a few storage rooms. John opened each door slowly. Some rooms were empty, but others contained interesting items. A mirror with a gold frame, a rocking chair, and a trunk full of clothes from another century. Every object seemed to whisper stories about the people who once lived there. At the end of the hallway, John found a door slightly hidden behind a curtain. It looked different from the others. Its wood was darker and stronger, and it had a small keyhole. John's heart beat faster. Could this be a secret room? He thought. He tried the door, but it was locked. He made a note to call a locksmith later. He felt certain that something important was behind it. John also noticed the garden from the windows. The lawn was overgrown with weeds, and old trees had branches touching the house walls. Flowers that once must have been bright were now wilted and hidden under vines. Yet there was beauty in the wildness. Birds chirped from the trees, and sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dancing shadows on the ground. John imagined what the garden could look like with care. I could bring this garden back to life, he thought. By the end of the day, John felt tired but happy. He had explored most of the mansion and discovered many hidden corners. He could already sense that this place was special. Even in its ruined state, it had character, history, and maybe even secrets waiting to be uncovered. He made plans to return the next day, bringing tools, notebooks, and cameras to record everything. As he locked the mansion for the night and stepped outside, John looked back at the large building. The moonlight shone on its roof, highlighting the broken tiles and shadows. He felt a strong sense of anticipation. The mansion was not just a ruin. It was an adventure. And John knew deep in his heart that his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. He walked to his small car and drove back to the hotel he had booked. Even on the drive, his mind was filled with thoughts of the mansion, the hidden room, and the letters he had read. Tomorrow promised new discoveries, and John felt ready. The mansion, which once seemed like a useless old house, had started to reveal its true magic. The next morning, John returned to the mansion. Sunlight bathed the old walls and the broken windows glowed like golden frames. The air smelled fresh, but inside the mansion, the familiar scent of dust and old wood remained. John carried his notebook, a flashlight, and a small camera. He felt excited, eager to continue exploring. Yesterday had given him a glimpse of the mansion's secrets, but he knew there was much more to discover. John first went back to the study where he had found the letters. He picked up the letters again, reading them more carefully. The handwriting was elegant and the stories were fascinating. Some letters spoke of trips to distant cities. Others mentioned hidden treasures and secret rooms. One letter in particular caught his attention. It described a special room that contained objects of great value, hidden carefully so only family members could find them. John's heart raced. Could this be the key to the mansion's hidden secrets? After carefully putting the letters back, John decided to explore the first floor again. He examined every corner, every cabinet, and every drawer. The furniture was old, some broken, but he noticed details he had missed before. In one corner, he found a chest covered with dust. He lifted the lid slowly. Inside were small items, old jewelry and gold coins that looked very ancient. John could hardly believe it. The mansion was not just full of memories. It held real treasures. He carefully placed each item back in the chest, making sure to record its location in his notebook. Then John turned his attention to the hidden door he had noticed yesterday. It was behind the heavy curtain at the end of the hallway. He examined it closely. The keyhole was old and round, and the wood was polished differently from the other doors. It clearly had a purpose. John felt that this door could lead to something very important. He made a plan to find a locksmith to open it, but for now he looked around for other clues. John moved to the bedrooms on the upper floor. Each room had its own character. One room had a large wardrobe filled with old clothes. Another had a rocking chair and a small table with dusty books. In a corner, he noticed a small box hidden under the floorboards. Using his flashlight, he opened it and found old coins, stamps, and tiny ornaments. These were not as valuable as gold, but they were precious pieces of history. John carefully noted everything, feeling like a true explorer. As he explored, John began noticing strange symbols on some walls and furniture. Some looked like letters, while others were shapes or designs he did not recognize. He sketched them in his notebook, hoping they might be part of a puzzle. The mansion seemed to be giving him clues, almost like it wanted him to understand its story. Every discovery filled him with wonder, and he felt closer to the distant relatives he had never met. By midday, John took a break in the main hall. Sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating the dust particles floating in the air. He sat on an old chair and imagined what life had been like here long ago. The mansion had once been lively, filled with laughter, conversations, and music. Now it was quiet, but the history seemed to remain in the walls, waiting for someone to notice. John felt proud that he was the one to see it. After resting, John went to explore the garden. The overgrown weeds and wildflowers gave it a mysterious look. He noticed a small stone pathway leading to a fountain hidden by tall bushes. Water no longer flowed, but the fountain was beautifully carved with flowers and animals in stone. Birds were singing in the trees, adding life to the silent mansion. John imagined cleaning the garden, planting flowers, and restoring it to its former beauty. The mansion, he realized, was not just about treasures. It was about history and care. Before leaving for the day, John decided to climb up to the attic. The staircase was steep and the air was thick with dust. In the attic, he found old trunks, paintings, and more books. Some trunks contained maps, others had family records. One trunk had a small key tied with a ribbon. John took the key carefully. Could it fit the hidden door he had found? He held it in his hand, feeling hope and excitement. The mansion was slowly revealing its secrets, and John knew that something extraordinary was waiting for him. As the sun set, John stepped outside and looked at the mansion. Shadows stretched across the walls, making the house look larger and more mysterious. He smiled, feeling a mix of wonder and determination. Tomorrow, he would return with more tools and plans to explore the mansion further. Each room, each object, and each symbol seemed important. The mansion, once a forgotten building, was now a place of adventure and discovery. John felt ready for whatever he might find next. The next morning, John returned to the mansion with renewed excitement. He carried his notebook, camera, flashlight, and a small toolkit. Yesterday had revealed many hidden corners, strange symbols, and old treasures. Today, he hoped to find even more clues about the mansion's secrets. The air was crisp and sunlight reflected on the broken windows, making the old building look magical. John decided to start with the hidden door he had discovered behind the curtain. He studied it carefully. The wood was strong and polished differently than the other doors, and the small key he had found in the attic seemed like it might fit. His hands shook slightly with anticipation as he inserted the key into the lock. With a soft click, the door opened. He held his flashlight high and stepped inside. The room was small and dimly lit. Dust covered every surface and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. John could see old wooden boxes stacked neatly along the walls. He felt like he had stepped into a secret storage room that had been untouched for decades. Carefully, he examined the boxes. Each one had markings and symbols similar to the ones he had seen in other parts of the mansion. He made notes and sketches in his notebook, trying to understand the patterns. John opened one of the boxes. Inside were small chests filled with gold coins, silver jewelry, and gemstones that glittered even in the faint light. He could hardly believe his eyes. The mansion, which had seemed abandoned and useless, was actually a hidden treasure house. He felt a mix of wonder and responsibility. These items were valuable, but they were also part of his family history. Excited, John opened another box. This one contained old scrolls and maps. The maps showed distant lands, some with drawings of mountains, rivers, and forests. The scrolls had detailed notes about journeys, discoveries, and rare artifacts. John realized that his distant relatives had been explorers, traveling to faraway places and collecting treasures. The mansion had been their safe place where they kept everything carefully hidden. John took his camera and began photographing each item and box. He wanted a record of everything he found. Some boxes contained letters addressed to family members, explaining the treasures and how to find them. One letter spoke of a final discovery hidden in a secret room within the mansion. It described a collection of priceless jewels and artifacts, all carefully stored to be discovered by someone who truly cared about the family's history. John's heart raced. Could he be the one to find it all? He spent hours in the secret room, carefully examining every box and object. Some treasures were small but beautiful, like carved figurines and delicate jewelry. Others were larger, like old coins and gemstones. John felt a strong sense of connection to his family. He realized that these treasures were not just valuable in money, but in the stories they held. Every coin, every map, and every letter told a story about courage, adventure, and careful planning. After exploring the hidden room, John decided to search the rest of the mansion for more clues. He went back to the upper floor and examined the attic again. There were more trunks and boxes, some of which he had not opened before. Inside one, he found a small wooden chest with a golden lock. Using the key he had found earlier, he opened it and discovered rare gemstones that sparkled brilliantly in the light. John could hardly believe the mansion had so many hidden treasures. He then explored the bedrooms and study once more. In a desk drawer, he found letters describing secret compartments and hidden doors. One letter mentioned a false wall in the library that could be opened by pressing a special symbol. John remembered the symbols he had seen and began testing them carefully. After a few minutes, a small section of the wall moved slightly. He pushed it gently and it opened to reveal another tiny hidden room. Inside the room, John found even more treasures, old jewelry, silver cups, and ancient coins. It was clear that the mansion had been designed to hide these treasures carefully. John realized that his family's explorers had been very clever, making sure that only someone curious and patient could find them. He felt proud that he had discovered this secret, understanding the thought and effort that had gone into protecting the family's wealth. By late afternoon, John stepped outside and looked at the mansion. The sunlight reflected off the broken windows and the overgrown garden, giving it a magical glow. He felt exhausted but happy. The mansion, which had seemed empty and ruined, was full of secrets and treasures. John knew that the adventure was only beginning, and that there were still more discoveries waiting for him. As he drove back to his hotel, John thought about calling Sam and Mia to share the exciting news. He smiled, imagining their surprise and curiosity. The mansion, once a forgotten building, was now a place of adventure, history, and discovery. And John felt ready to uncover every secret it held one by one. The next morning, John returned to the mansion with a sense of purpose. He had already discovered several hidden rooms and boxes filled with treasures, but he felt certain that more secrets were waiting. The sunlight streamed through the broken windows, illuminating the dust and casting long shadows across the floor. Every step he took seemed to echo, reminding him how silent the mansion had been for years. John began his exploration in the library. The shelves were tall and filled with dusty books, some falling apart and others surprisingly well preserved. He ran his fingers along the spines, noticing titles about travel, history, and science. As he studied the shelves, he remembered the letter that mentioned a false wall. He examined the symbols carved into the wood carefully. One symbol matched the sketches he had made in his notebook. With steady hands, John pressed the symbol. Slowly, a section of the wall moved, revealing a hidden doorway. His heart beat faster as he stepped into the small room. It was darker than the other rooms, and the air felt colder. Dust covered the floor, and the shelves along the walls held boxes tied with ribbons and old chests. This room felt different from the others, as if it had been preserved specially to keep something very important. John opened the first chest. Inside were piles of old coins and silver plates shining despite the layer of dust. He carefully examined each item, noting its details in his notebook. Some of the coins were stamped with dates from hundreds of years ago. Others had intricate designs that showed the skill of ancient craftsmen. John realized that these treasures were not just valuable, but rare pieces of history. Next, he opened a box tied with a faded ribbon. Inside were jewelry pieces made of gold and silver, some embedded with precious gems. Necklaces, rings, and brooches sparkled faintly in the dim light. John was amazed by the craftsmanship and the beauty of each piece. He felt like he was holding the past in his hands, connecting with people who had lived long ago. Carefully, he placed each item back in the box, making sure to record everything in his notebook. As he explored further, John discovered a series of letters tied together with a red ribbon. He opened the top letter and began to read. It explained that the mansion had been owned by a family of explorers who traveled the world, collecting treasures and rare artifacts. The letters described how they hid their most valuable possessions in secret rooms to protect them. John realized that the mansion itself was a map, and each room contained clues to find even greater treasures. John felt a rush of excitement. He had already found gold coins, jewelry, and rare objects, but the letters hinted at something more. He carefully examined the walls, furniture, and floorboards, searching for hidden compartments. After hours of searching, he noticed a small wooden panel near the corner of the room. It looked slightly different from the others. He pressed it gently, and a small section of the wall opened to reveal a tiny hidden compartment. Inside the compartment was a chest unlike any other he had seen. It was solid, made of dark wood, and had intricate carvings on the surface. John opened it slowly. His eyes widened in disbelief. Inside were gemstones of every color, gold bars, and rare artifacts from distant lands. He had never seen so much wealth in one place. The collection was breathtaking, not just because of its value, but because it told a story of exploration, adventure, and careful planning. John sat on the floor for a moment, taking it all in. He thought about how his children had laughed when they heard he inherited the mansion. They had no idea what secrets it held. He felt a sense of pride and responsibility. These treasures were not only valuable in money, but also in history. He knew he had to protect them and learn everything he could about the family that had left them behind. As the afternoon passed, John carefully packed his camera and notebook. He decided to call Sam and Mia to share a part of his discovery. He wanted them to understand the importance of the mansion and the treasures it contained. When he spoke to them, their voices were full of surprise and curiosity. "Dad, are you serious? You found all this in the mansion?" Sam asked. Mia added, "This is amazing. We never imagined it would be so valuable. We want to come and see it." John smiled, feeling happy that his children were beginning to understand. The mansion, which had seemed like a ruined building, was now a place of wonder and adventure. The treasures inside were only part of the story. Every room, every symbol, and every hidden corner told a story about the family who had lived here. John knew that his journey of discovery was far from over. As he stepped outside, John looked at the mansion under the golden sunlight. The vines, the broken windows, and the overgrown garden no longer seemed sad or abandoned. They were part of the story, part of the history he had uncovered. He felt a strong connection to the mansion, as if it had been waiting for him to arrive and reveal its secrets. Tomorrow, he decided, he would return to explore even more, learning everything this magnificent house had to offer. The next morning, John returned to the mansion feeling eager and curious. The sunlight made the broken windows sparkle, and the overgrown garden seemed less wild in the morning glow. He carried his notebook, flashlight, and camera, ready to continue exploring the mansion's hidden secrets. Yesterday's discoveries had filled him with wonder, but he had a strong feeling that there was still more to find. John started by revisiting the hidden room behind the secret wall in the library. The gemstones, gold bars, and rare artifacts he had found were incredible, but he knew that this room might not hold everything. He carefully examined the chests and boxes again, making sure he had noted every detail. As he moved one of the boxes, he noticed a small piece of paper tucked underneath. It was a map, old and slightly torn at the edges. The map showed the mansion with markings that seemed to indicate hidden rooms, compartments, and other treasures. Excited, John followed the map to a part of the mansion he had not explored thoroughly. It was a hallway on the second floor with several bedrooms. One door at the far end looked ordinary, but had a small symbol carved into the wood. John compared it with his notebook sketches. It matched a symbol he had seen earlier in the attic. Carefully, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was small and dusty, with old furniture covered in sheets. John moved the sheets aside and found a chest in the corner. It was locked, but the key he had found in the attic fit perfectly. He opened the chest and discovered more treasures: ancient coins, gold rings, and small carved statues from distant lands. John was amazed. The mansion was filled with treasures carefully hidden over many generations. Each discovery made him feel closer to the family who had lived here before him. After examining the chest, John explored the rest of the room. He found a small cabinet with old journals and ledgers. The journals contained detailed records of the family's travels, purchases, and discoveries. Some pages had sketches of rare plants, animals, and artifacts. John realized that these records were invaluable. They explained the history of the treasures and showed how the family had protected them. He carefully photographed the pages and added notes in his notebook, knowing this information would be important for understanding the mansion fully. Next, John moved to the garden. The overgrown plants and weeds had made it seem wild and untamed, but as he walked through it, he noticed hidden pathways and stone steps partially covered by vines. One path led to a small crumbling fountain, its water long gone. Near the fountain, he found a small stone box partly buried in the soil. Carefully, he dug it out and opened it. Inside were more coins and a few old jewelry pieces. The mansion and garden together were like a giant puzzle, each piece waiting to be discovered and understood. John spent the afternoon exploring more rooms on the first floor. He found a room that had been a study, with old maps and charts scattered on the desk. Some maps were of distant continents, others of small villages. He realized that the family had been explorers, merchants, and collectors who traveled widely. Each map, chart, and object told a story about their adventures. John felt a strong sense of connection to these distant relatives he had never met. By late afternoon, John decided to take a break and sit in the main hall. Sunlight poured through the large windows, highlighting the dust particles in the air. He thought about how much the mansion had changed his life. It had started as a ruined building, a source of laughter for his children, but now it was full of history, treasures, and adventure. John smiled, imagining the surprise and excitement on Sam and Mia's faces when they would see everything. Before leaving for the day, John made one final exploration. He climbed to the attic once again, checking the trunks and boxes he had not yet examined. In one trunk, he found a small wooden box tied with a golden ribbon. Inside were letters, photographs, and personal belongings of the family. John felt touched as he looked at them. He realized that these items were not only valuable, but also sentimental. They showed the love, care, and dedication of the family who had lived here long ago. As the sun set, John stepped outside and looked at the mansion in the golden evening light. The broken windows, peeling paint, and overgrown garden no longer seemed sad. Instead, they were part of the story, part of the adventure he had uncovered. John knew there were still more secrets to find, but he felt proud of what he had discovered so far. The next morning, John felt a rush of excitement as he drove back to the mansion. He had discovered many treasures, hidden rooms, and old letters, but he had a feeling that the most important secret was still waiting. The sun was bright and the air smelled fresh, giving him energy and determination. Today, he wanted to explore every corner carefully, hoping to uncover the mansion's final hidden surprise. John started in the library, where he had previously discovered the hidden doorway. He examined the room once more, paying close attention to every detail. The gemstones, gold bars, and ancient artifacts had already amazed him, but he felt certain that the secret room held even more. He checked the walls, furniture, and floorboards carefully, looking for any symbols or marks he might have missed before. As he moved a large bookshelf, he noticed a small gap behind it. He crouched down and shone his flashlight inside. There was a trapdoor, hidden cleverly under a layer of dust and old carpet. John's heart began to beat faster. He had found something new, something that might be the final secret the mansion held. With careful hands, he lifted the trapdoor. It opened to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. John took a deep breath and switched on his flashlight. He slowly descended the stairs, each step creaking under his weight. The air grew cooler as he went down. At the bottom, he found a small underground room. The walls were lined with wooden shelves and stone compartments. The room smelled of earth and old wood, but it had a sense of importance, as if it had been built to protect something very special. John began examining the shelves. He saw chests, boxes, and crates all carefully stacked. One large chest in the center of the room immediately caught his attention. It was made of dark wood and had intricate carvings on its surface. John knew this chest was different. He carefully unlocked it with the key he had found earlier and lifted the lid. Inside was a collection of treasures unlike anything he had seen before. There were gold coins, silver cups, gemstones of every color, and jewelry more beautiful than he had ever imagined. But what amazed him the most were the rare artifacts from different parts of the world. Small statues, carved masks, and delicate objects that told stories of distant lands and ancient times. John realized that this was the ultimate collection his distant relatives had hidden. He carefully examined each item, making notes and taking photographs. Every object seemed to have a story, a history, and a purpose. John could feel the importance of this discovery. It was not just wealth. It was a record of adventure, courage, and careful planning by the family who had lived in the mansion long ago. He knew that this treasure would change his life forever. After documenting everything, John decided to call his children, Sam and Mia. He wanted them to see what he had found and understand the mansion's true value. When they arrived, their eyes widened in shock and wonder. They could not believe that what they had once laughed at, the ruined mansion, was actually filled with treasures worth millions and priceless pieces of history. "Dad, this is unbelievable," Sam said, his voice full of surprise. Mia added, "We never imagined the mansion could hold something like this. It's amazing." John smiled, feeling a sense of pride and joy. He knew that the mansion was no longer just a building. It had become a bridge between past and present, connecting him and his family to the explorers who had lived here long ago. Together, they explored the underground room. Sam and Mia helped John examine the artifacts, chests, and documents. Each discovery brought excitement and amazement. They found letters explaining the origins of the treasures, maps of distant lands, and journals filled with stories of adventures and discoveries. The mansion, which had seemed empty and abandoned, was now full of life, history, and wonder. As the day came to an end, John, Sam, and Mia sat in the mansion's main hall. They looked around at the broken windows, peeling paint, and overgrown garden, seeing them in a new light. The mansion was no longer a ruined building. It was a place of history, treasure, and family connection. They felt proud to be part of this story, and grateful for the discoveries that had brought them closer together. John realized that the mansion had taught him something important. Patience, curiosity, and determination could reveal incredible surprises, and what might seem worthless at first could hold great value. The laughter his children once shared at his bad luck was now replaced with awe and respect. The 200 million discovery was not just about money. It was about history, family, and the adventure of uncovering something truly remarkable. That night, John looked out of the mansion's window at the glowing moon. The house with its treasures and stories seemed to shine even in the darkness. He felt a sense of satisfaction and anticipation for the future. The mansion had been waiting for him, and now he had unlocked its greatest secrets. His life and his family's life would never be the same again. The morning sun shone brightly on the mansion, and John felt a warm sense of satisfaction. After days of exploring hidden rooms, secret compartments, and countless treasures, the mansion had finally revealed all its secrets. The once ruined building now seemed alive with history and wonder. He walked through the halls, carefully examining the treasures one last time, feeling grateful for the adventure and discoveries that had changed his life. Sam and Mia arrived early, full of excitement. The children who had once laughed at the idea of their father inheriting a ruined mansion were now eager to explore every corner. They marveled at the underground room, the chests of gold and gemstones, and the rare artifacts collected from around the world. Every object had a story, and every story was a connection to the family they had never known. The mansion had transformed from a place of jokes into a treasure of history and pride. "Dad, this is amazing," Mia said as she carefully held a small golden cup. "I never imagined a single building could hide so much." Sam nodded, examining an old map of distant lands. "It's not just the money. These stories, the travels, the artifacts, they are incredible. I can't believe this was all hidden here for years." John smiled, proud of his children's understanding. He felt that they finally appreciated the mansion's true value. Together, they explored the garden. The overgrown plants and weeds had started to seem like part of the mansion's charm. Hidden pathways, small fountains, and old stone benches gave the garden a magical feeling. John explained how they could restore it slowly, planting flowers and trimming the vines while preserving the history. Sam and Mia eagerly agreed, imagining the mansion full of life and beauty once again. After exploring, John gathered the family in the main hall. He carefully explained everything he had found over the past days: the secret rooms, the hidden chests, the letters, and the journals. He shared stories from the letters about distant travels, adventures, and the careful planning of their ancestors. Sam and Mia listened with wonder, realizing that their father's discovery was not just wealth, but a priceless connection to history and family. "Dad, we were wrong to laugh at this mansion," Sam said quietly. "It's more than a house. It's a story, a treasure, and now it's part of our family." Mia added, "Yes, and it shows how much patience and curiosity can discover. You never gave up, and look at what we found." John felt a deep sense of pride. The mansion had brought them closer, teaching them lessons about patience, respect, and appreciation for the past. The family decided to preserve the mansion carefully. They cleaned the rooms, restored the furniture, and repaired the broken windows. Experts helped them catalog the treasures, documenting the artifacts, coins, and rare objects. John wanted the mansion to remain a place where history could be shared, not just a private collection. Sam and Mia enjoyed helping with the restoration, learning about the importance of preserving the past for future generations. Over the following weeks, news of the mansion and its treasures spread. Historians, journalists, and curious visitors came to see the remarkable discovery. John shared the story of the family explorers, their adventures, and the careful hiding of treasures. People admired the mansion not only for its wealth but also for the fascinating history it represented. The mansion became a symbol of patience, curiosity, and the rewards of exploring carefully. One evening, as the sun set and cast golden light across the mansion, John stood at the balcony with Sam and Mia. They looked out over the garden, imagining how beautiful it would become when fully restored. John felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The mansion had been ruined when he inherited it, but it had transformed into a treasure of history, adventure, and family connection. "It's incredible," John said. "This mansion has taught us so much. We found treasures, yes, but more importantly, we discovered stories, history, and a part of ourselves." Sam smiled. "And we also learned not to judge something by its appearance. What seemed worthless at first turned out to be priceless." Mia nodded, looking at the mansion with admiration. "It's a new beginning for our family and a place where we can honor our ancestors." The mansion, once abandoned and forgotten, now stood proudly as a home of history, discovery, and family. John, Sam, and Mia worked together to maintain it, ensuring that its stories and treasures would inspire others for years to come. What had started as a ruined inheritance became a journey of wonder, learning, and connection.